Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Morning, everyone. Can all of you hear me? Can you just in the chat? Yeah, so that before we start. Okay, great. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to ACBP 5121. I am Astrid Hellberg. I am your lecturer for this semester. And we're going to today focus specifically on the introduction of accounting. So let me just quickly share my slides with you so all of you can see it. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so for this year, a lot of you are new. There are a few that I am seeing again from last year. Now, what I want to just to say about the subject is, remember this subject requires a lot of effort from your side as well, and that you are required to put in a lot of time and effort. Now, the reason I say this is if you're not going to put in the time and effort to understand the subject, the implications for you guys are that you will not be able to do the second semester accounting subject, which ultimately means you're doing first and second semester again next year, and it can possibly delay your finishing your degree on time. Now, that being said, that's why I put this motivational thing on. Success is the sum of all your efforts repeated day in, day out. So I understand accounting is not a lot of law students' favorite subject. I get that, it's an additional module, but unfortunately you need to pass it. So I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible for you to understand the concepts. We're going to work through a lot of questions to help you answer the questions in your test, in your assignment, in your exam, and how you need to approach it. Okay, now what I want all of you to do is download the Kahoot app either on your phone, or if you go onto the internet, you can just type in www.kahoot.com, and we're going to play a game. I just want to see what your knowledge is at this moment, and then we'll continue our class for today. So while you guys download that, I'm quickly going to just share the Kahoot screen with you guys. Okay, can you guys see the screen that gives you, okay, the game pin is just loading at the moment. So the game pin is 9103833 that you guys need to use to log into this specific game. Can all of you see this screen? Okay, I'm just gonna switch off my camera as well, just to save some data for all of you. Okay, so I've got 4 people in the game at the moment. So the code, just to repeat it, is 9103833. Okay, let me just stop sharing and I'll try again to see if we can get it to share. Okay, you should be able to see the game now on your screen. Okay, so I see there's still a few of you that's not logged in. So I'm going to give you a minute or two still to log in. For those of you that don't necessarily want to use your real name, you can use some other name as well, or nickname, or whatever you feel like calling yourself. This is just to sort of gauge what you guys understand from accounting. Okay, so I'm going to start the game. So let's see how you guys go. Okay, so there's going to be a question, 20 seconds. Pick the correct answer of what you think. Okay, so the correct answer was 5,000 years. Accounting has been around for 5,000 years, so it's been around for quite a long time. So initially it was started as the concept is called crude accounting. Now what that means is they use stones and whatever type of materials they could find to record what someone owed or what they had. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So 5 of you got it correct. So let's move on to the next question. So the winner at the moment is Palier. So let's see how we go with the next question. So the question is, records used to transcribe and or summarize financial transactions. What document are we talking about? Okay, well done. So 3 of you got it correct. Source documents is the documents in accounting where we summarize and record, or we take the information from there and then we put it in our financial transactions. Okay, so well done. Let's see, next question, true and false. Okay, so the reason this one is false, we do not call it the income statement anymore. It is called the statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, the electricity went off here, so I just wasn't sure if all of you are still there. Okay. So the reason it's not the income statement, it used to be the income statement, that's the old terminology, but it's now actually changed to the statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income. Okay, so that's the reason that was false. Okay, let's look at the next question. Okay, so the correct answer is the general ledger. Now, the reason it shows the collection of accounts The general ledger is in essence a summary of all your journals that have been transferred into your general ledger, and it shows your cash book journals, your general journals, your data journals. So it shows all of your different journals is summarized into that one account, which we call the general ledger. Another name we use for it is a T account. When we get there, I'll show you why it's called a T account. So well done, we've got a new leader. Okay, so the correct answer, the crude accounting system actually lasted until the 12th century BC. And that is, like I said, crude accounting is we used rocks, we used wood, whatever we could find in nature to record our transactions of what we've exchanged for something else and what we owned. Okay, so another true or false questions. You've got a 50-50 chance of getting this right. Okay, so Fra Luca Pacioli invented double entry system. So he didn't actually invent the double entry accounting system. He just transcribed it in such a way that it became well known within the accounting world. So he didn't actually invent it. It was already created 5,000 years before, right in the beginning. That's where the crude accounting came from. So in the beginning, when we exchanged food for another item, we would record it on a piece of rock or a piece of wood. And that's why this one is false, because he actually hasn't invented it. He just took a system that already existed and then wrote a document explaining it a bit better so that people actually started understanding what has been applied in practice already. Okay, so if you guys selected the questions, so a management can be a user of financial information, investors can be employees, labor unions. Now, with this specific question, just to show you, there's a lot of people that use the financial information that we prepare and that we're going to teach you how to do in this module at the end of the day. So it's not only your shareholders or stakeholders. Employees will use financials to see, is the company liquid? Will I still receive my salary? Labor unions use it to see what's the profit margins? What is the increase we can negotiate? Investors want to see, is the company that I've invested in a good investment? And management uses it again to see, what do we need to change to grow our company to make it perform so much better in the next year? Okay, let's see. Next question. Okay, so the correct answer is IFRS. If you selected GAAP or SA GAAP, those were the accounting standards that used to be used in the past. Okay, so that was the general applied accounting practices that was used in previously. Now, what happened is, because of the fact that there was one for South Africa, there was one for the US, there's one in Europe. So each country had their own specific way of how they interpreted the information. And for that reason, the IASB, which is your International Accounting Standards Board, they created a standard called IFRS, which is your International Financial Reporting Standards, which is used internationally by all countries, and it is exactly the same rules are applied internationally. So why did they actually do this? This helps us to make sure that if I take a set of accounts in New Zealand, in America, and I look at it and compare it to a South African company, I will be comparing the same type of information, and it will be a lot easier to determine if my company is, how it's performing against the company in a different market. Okay, so that was the reason behind that. Okay, 3 more questions to go. Let's see how you guys go. Okay, congrats to the guys that got it correct. So management accounts, we actually use it to see how our business, the cash flow is going to look for the next 2 months. So we've got 2 types of accounts in a business. You got management accounts and financial accounts. Financial accounts shows us historical data, so transactions that have already taken place. Where management accounts tend to look at the future, what is going to happen in a few months, a few years. And that is the accounts that your internal guys, so your managers in the company or your directors will use to see how a company is performing, how should we change things up to actually enhance our business. Whereas financial accounts is what has happened in the past, what was our profit, how many assets do we have, what's the liabilities. So it's something you use in the past, which is then recorded for your stakeholders at the end of the day. Okay, so next question. Okay, so the only one that, according to this, is not one of your qualitative characteristics, and this you would have found in your textbook, is reliability. Now, the reason reliability is not one on its own is because it actually forms part of statistics, which says your information is reliable, it only discloses material information. So that only shows information which would influence your stakeholders' decision at the end of the day. Okay, then next question. This is the easy one. Well done, you all got it correct. So all of these are business forms we have in South Africa. So you get a sole proprietorship, which is basically like a one-man band type of show. So it's one person that now they are being phased out and being replaced by Pty Limited, and they now form part of the Companies Act as well. But in the past, you could have done a closed corporation, and then you've got your partnerships as well. So let's see who won our Test Your Accounting Knowledge for today. So number 3rd is Neil. Well done, Neil. 2nd is nickname. And 1st is Daniel. Well done. Okay, so give you guys a pat on the back. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing this. Okay, so let me just share my screen again with you and then we can start. So based on the game, I can see a lot of you do have some knowledge of accounting and some of the aspects. There are some things which we will discuss now to give you a broader understanding of what's going on. Okay, can all of you see the screen? My slides. You should be seeing on your screen a picture of myself. So, like I said, I'm Miss Astrid Helberg. My email address is on the screen. If you've got any questions, now with the way class is going to work this semester, half of it's going to be online, half of it's going to be face-to-face. So if you have questions, because I'm a contractor, I'm not always on campus. So send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now my availability, I'm generally available when we have class. So whether it's face-to-face or online, I am online during those times. And then I am available on email subsequent to that. If I'm not available, there will be an out of office to just mention if I'm on leave or what the case may be. But I would generally try and get back to you within 24 hours with a response based on your question. And if there's something I don't know, I'll let you know and I'll get back to you. Okay, now just basic information for you guys to know. Table, they've split it into collab sessions, face-to-face sessions, LAC sessions. Now your collab session is like what we have today. It's online. Your face-to-face is we physically sitting, you're sitting in a classroom, I'm standing in the front and we have a conversation that day. And your LAC is your learning activities completion. Now this is where you have self-study work to do and you've got specific time in a day to do that. Now for your LAC sessions, I won't be online during those ones generally because I normally don't work on those days. But if you send me an email, if you've got questions, then you can just let me know. What I will do is prior to that session taking place, I will upload on VC Learn what is required from you. So a little later, I'll quickly show you on VC Learn where do you find all the information that I load for you. Then your prescribed textbook, I've just put it on the screen. So it's a 2021 edition. If you are a repeating student, the textbook is pretty much the same as the one from the prior year. There might be a few page number changes. So if you want to use a prior year textbook, you're welcome to, but just make sure to compare it to the current years and see what has changed. Then other material that will be available for you guys is on VC Learn. There is some activities. And then under the more resources on VC Learn, I've loaded some short videos that was developed by our guru to explain key concepts, which is useful for those guys that don't like a lot of reading and prefer listening to it or seeing someone explain it. So I've loaded that on there. I will load all the slides for class on there. You will see I've sent a lesson plan. I've also loaded the lesson plan. This is basically a summary where you find that specific learning unit outcomes, where you find that in the textbook, any activities relating to that learning unit on VC that you need to complete, any questions in your textbook, and I will normally list on there when we have classes, what type of class it is, and for the collabs, I will include the links. And then there's an activity or ICE task folder as well. Those are our little online tests. Some of them might also be physically in class that you guys will do. You will get a mark for that ICE task, which will then contribute toward your semester mark. Your top 4 out of the 6 will count. So try and do the best you can. And your first ICE task will be on Friday, based on the work that you had to complete in the LAC session. Okay, so this is just to explain quickly how the new teaching and learning module will look. It looks a bit different from last year. So you'll see half of it's face-to-face. Like I said, that's where we're on campus. We will interact in person. Then 25% is our collab, like the online sessions we have now. And then the other 25% is your learning activity completion. So that's normally after we've completed lectures for the week, you'll have some self-study time. Now, for these sessions, I will require that you do some pre-reading or some specific examples or questions that I want you to prepare for. The reason we do this is because we have limited time, and I just want to make sure we cover all the difficult stuff in class time and the easier stuff you can rather do at home. Okay, now my expectations for the year, and then I'm going to put it over to you guys, what your expectations are. I want you guys to attend class. The reason class attendance is so important. If you read the textbook, accounting is foreign language to a lot of students. They don't understand the concepts, and it takes a lot of time to wrap your mind around it. If you come to class, we try and unpack it for you. You are able to ask me questions in class to clarify something that might be something easy that you don't understand, but the chances 90% of the group doesn't understand that same concept because you all think similar in a similar way. So class attendance is important for that reason. It gives you the opportunity to ask questions, and it also gives you the opportunity to see, okay, how do we actually do this? If I don't understand something, can you please re-explain it to me? And I explain it to the whole group because, like I said, 90% of the class generally don't understand the same concept. Then the second thing is mutual respect between your fellow students as well as with me. So for online, we do not generally write in caps like the fun at the bottom. The reason for that is it is perceived on an online platform as you are screaming at someone. Okay, so please limit your capitalizations. Make sure that the words that you use, you would actually say that to someone's face if they were standing right in front of you. And also be considerate before you post something that, have I actually written it in a constructive manner? So if you don't agree with something, that is 100% fine. It's just the way you say it to someone that we need to look out for. Then, like I said, be prepared for class. If you're prepared for class, it helps us to focus more on the difficult stuff and to get through the content a lot quicker so we can then slow down and spend more time on the things where students struggle in tests, in assignments, in the exam, so that we can try and get all of you to actually pass this module. Then homework. The reason we give you homework is to make sure that what we've discussed in class, that you go and you practice it at home. Because once you do it on your own, you actually realize what it is that you don't understand or what are you struggling with. And that leads to the next question. Ask questions. There's no stupid question ever. So if you're unsure about something, just ask. The chances is you, your buddy next to you, someone else in the classroom, they don't understand. So ask questions. I will re-clarify something. I will use a different example if I need to help you guys with it. Now, before I move on, is there anything from your side what you have as an expectation for this semester, for this class? You can either type it in the chat function for me, or you can put it in, pick up the mic and then just speak to me. Okay, so what are your expectations for the semester? Do you guys have no expectations for the semester or this module? I know one of the big ones that usually come from student side is they want to pass. Is there anything else that you guys have? Or if you're happy with just passing, just put a thumbs up or smiley face or anything in the chat function, just that I know that you guys are still alive and you're still online. Okay, so I'm glad you guys are still alive. I haven't lost you. And then one thing I want all of us to do is have fun during this year. I know this module can be stressful for a lot of people, but I want you to have fun while we learn these things so that we can make sure all of you pass. Okay, let's move on then. So on my slides, I have put these little icons there. That is just to show you where in your textbook you can find the information or what the question number and the page number is, so that if you want to refer back later on, it's easy to find the information. Okay, now let's start with Introduction to Business, Bookkeeping and Accounting. Just a note for next time and for your face-to-face classes, please remember to bring your textbooks along with you because we are going to work through questions in your textbook. Bring some paper where you can write your answers on, and a calculator is also a requirement. So don't forget those for your next class. Okay, so the learning objectives, and that is important for each learning unit, is to make sure that you can do all of these learning objectives, because that is what we are ultimately going to test you on. Now, learning unit 1 specifically, we will test it more as match column A with column B. It can be multiple choice questions. So we're going to test the theory. So learning unit 1 is not as practical as all the other ones. This is more theory based, but you still need to be aware of the information. They do test it, and there is specific things they like to test frequently. So when I get to those, I will stop there. Okay, so provide a brief overview of the history of accounting. Now, be aware of the history of accounting, but be more aware of who the key role players are that actually resulted in the accounting system like it is today. Then outline the users and the use of accounting information. For this one, you need to be able to just explain or identify the different users of a set of financial accounts and explain what they would use the account or the accounting information for. Okay, so there's a good summary in your textbook explaining those. Then explain the principles of your international financial reporting standards. Those ones, just be aware of it, and that we do have international financial reporting frameworks that sort of sets out how each of our accounts would look and to make them that they are similar in nature. And those also link with your qualitative characteristics, which each set of financials have, and those are more important than the theory behind it. Then illustrate the accounting cycle that you need to know. So what is the different steps in the accounting cycle? How often do we do it? So we're going to look at that as well. And then contrast between financial management and management accounting. So those are the two types of accountants you get in practice. This one they love to test. So be sure that you know this table, that you know the difference between a financial and a management account, differences are. And then list the various types of transactions that can occur during the ordinary course of business. As we continue, you will see the different type of transactions. A lot of them are common knowledge. You would actually already know them without realizing it. And then some of them will be new concepts to you guys. Okay, so we've done that now. So what is accounting? So I want you to think about a grocery store. And you guys can then either pick up a mic to answer the questions or type it in the chat function for me. So what was the last thing you guys actually bought when you went to the store? Oh, sorry. So you can tell me, what is the last thing you bought at the store? Can be any shop, it doesn't matter what store it is. Okay, so Michaela says bread and milk. Helena says apples. Benny says chocolate. Anela says a loaf of bread. So all of you bought something at the store. Now, let's take bread and milk as an example. How much would that cost you if you go buy bread and milk today, whether it's a Pick and Pay, Checkers, Woolies, wherever you prefer to shop? How much would you more or less pay for bread and milk? Okay, so depending on where you go, it can be between 40 or 50 Rand, depending on what shop you go to naturally. Okay, now how did you guys pay for it? Did you pay cash? Did you pay credit card? Did you snap scan? What did you guys use to actually pay for it? So Bernice says she paid cash, refillware, and Elena, okay, most of you guys actually prefer card above cash. Okay, so you can either pay cash or credit card when you go to a store, okay? So what proof did they give you to say that you've actually now paid for your bread and milk or your clothes or your chocolates or chips or whatever you bought? What did the store give you? Okay, so you get a slip, yes, so or receipt. Okay, now on that slip, on that receipt is vital information. It has the date on there. It's got the amount on there. Generally, if it's a slip, it's got all of the products that you've bought, each individual price. Does it have any tax on that slip at the end of the day? Is there any line item that would be considered tax? So Nella says yes. Okay, so what item is considered to be tax on that slip? Okay, so that's correct. The VAT is the tax component on the slip. Now, VAT is value added tax, so that is an indirect tax that we are paying over to SARS that is collected by the store on SARS's behalf, and they pay it over. Okay, and there I've already answered, who do you think gets the money you pay? Okay, so SARS actually gets the tax that we've paid over. Now, why do you think it is significant that these documents, that we keep these documents like the slips at the end of the day? So why do you think it's important that we keep these till slips at the end of the day? Okay, so if I go back to, okay, so in order to keep record of all the transactions. Yes, so that's correct. Okay, so when one of the questions included was also what do we use to summarize our financial transactions? Now, source documents. Now, a till slip is one of the many types of source documents that you get. Other source documents are like, for example, you get bank statements, you get invoices, there might be a check that's been written, So those are all type of source documents. That's a physical piece of paper or electronic document shows a specific financial transaction that has taken place within your year. Now, as an accountant of a business, you would use that document to then go and capture that information in our accounting system. Now, to capture or to write it down, the accounting work for that is we record it in your books. Okay, so once we've recorded that in the books, we call that the journal. So we type it in as a journal in our accounting records. Then we take all of that information and we condense that into totals and put that into our general ledgers or T accounts. Okay, now that is why we use those documents. Then at year end, when a company is being audited, your auditor will use those same till slips or documents to make sure that the transactions that have been recorded by your accountant or bookkeeper was done correctly. They've accounted for it in the correct account transaction, so whether it's an asset, a liability, and then they've also accounted for the tax correctly. So was there VAT on that transaction, yes or no? Has it been accounted for at the correct percentage? So that is why it is very important to keep these documents at the end of the day. Now, what accounting is, the definition per Investopedia is they call it a systematic and comprehensive recording of financial transactions. Now, systematic in date order, and we do it first transaction gets recorded first and so forth. Now, comprehensive recording is we capture all the details so that it's very easy to find that document. If I need to go back to the file, I've got an invoice number or document number, a date, the amount. So I've got sufficient information to be able to find that document if I have to go back to a physical hard copy file. Now that is capturing of the transactions. Now the accounting is where we take all of those transactions and we now summarize it by putting it into main categories or financial statement elements, which we're going to talk about, which is your assets, your liabilities, your owner's equity, your income, your expenses, and then taking that information and we analyze it. So we compare 1 year to the previous year to the current year to see, have we made more profit? Do we have more assets? So we compare the previous and the prior year and see the movements and how did the company actually do. And then you report on these, which is then called your financial statements. So we then document at the end of the day, what was our total income for the year, total expenses, so that people know. Now, when we talk accounting, it is all of those transactions is made up of debits and credits. Now, debits and credits is your accounting equation. And in accounting, that equation, whatever's on the debit side, should always equal what's on the credit side. So the amounts needs to be exactly the same for it to balance. And then management always uses this information to look at how a business performed and how we can improve it in the future. Exactly one of the questions that we had. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. So this is just a slide from the guru where she's explaining what is accounting and why we need it. So I'm not going to play the audio. All I wanted to, so this is one of the videos that I've loaded on BC Learn for you guys. So what I want you guys just to know is, why do we actually do accounting, or do we need it? So businesses use it to interpret the financial language and to understand the financial statements. And the way we do it, like I said previously when we did the Kahoot game, is it is documented in terms of IFRS so that each set of financial statements look exactly the same at the end of the day. So that when I compare one company to another, we will have exactly the same information. Is the reason for it. And they use similar terminology so that when different users look at the information, they know exactly what they're talking about. It's understandable. We can compare it a lot more easily than in the past. Okay. Now, double accounting entry before we take a break. This is what Luca Pacioli actually documented, where the debits and the credits come in. So you see there's a coin on the left-hand side and a note on the right-hand side. Your debit is always on your left. Your credit is always on the right-hand side. And whatever's on the left must always equal the right in terms of the double accounting rule that we have that makes sure that whatever we've accounted balances. And this principle is the underlying principle and the key principle for accounting. If your transaction does not balance, at the end of the day, your financials will not balance. You won't be able to do your cash flow correctly because you won't have all the financial data. You wouldn't have written it all up, which means you either missing a debit or a credit. When we get to Learning Unit 9, when we do year-end closing, we'll look at a trial balance. So where your left-hand column, if you add all of the amounts up, reaches, for example, 100,000, the credit side, which is the right-hand side, should also add up to 100,000. Then you know you have applied double entry accounting correctly. Okay, so this was created by Luca Pacioli, not invented, and it makes it easier to look up your transactions quickly at the end of the day. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here. So let me just get back to our screen. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. So you guys can go take a bathroom break, or you can just go stretch your legs. Before we stop this session, do you guys have any questions on what we've discussed so far? Okay, if you've got a question, you can either just pop on your mic, so just switch on your mic and just ask me the question, then I'll quickly answer it before we take a break. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any questions at the moment. So guys, we're just going to take a 10-minute break. I'll see you guys at 11 again.